Hello everyone, my name is Anupam Roy. In today's video, I am going to show you how to build a logging system using PHP and MySQL from scratch. This video is primarily targeted for the beginners in PHP and MySQL. In my login system, I'll have two pages, one for login, which you are seeing on the screen right now, and second one is the dashboard page, which is protected by our login system from any kind of unauthenticated access. While we build this system, we will also learn how to build an HTML form from scratch using a popular CSS framework called Bootstrap. Secondly, we will also see how we can connect to the MySQL database using PHP and get data from there. Thirdly, and most importantly, we are going to learn how to use session in PHP and use them throughout our login system to protect the dashboard page. So let's get started. As a step one, we are going to create our database for storing the users. So let's do it. I'll name it as UserDB and then I'll press the create button. Okay, my UserDB is created now. I'll put a table dt users for storing the users data. That table will have 4 columns: user ID, full name, user email, which will act as a username for our login system, and obviously we need a password. So let's create it. Okay, now I need to put user ID. This will be our primary key, so I'll choose index as primary key and press the go button here, and obviously this field is going to be auto incremented column, so I'll check the auto increment checkbox here. Now second field will be full name. It's a character field, so I am choosing varchar, putting 200 as its size. As I already told you, user email will be a varchar field as well, because it is also a character field, alphanumeric character field, and then I'll give it 200. Password. One thing we must remember about password: the data that the password field will hold will be in the encrypted form. Now, how do we generate this encrypted password? We can generate this encrypted password through PHP script, but we don't have any PHP script to create the user data or the users. So what we can do is we can go to Google and search for SA1 generators. Yeah. By the way, there are multiple ways you can generate encrypted strings. One of them is SHA-1. You can also have MD5, password hash. So let's first do something. Let's give it a name, give it string, which we can use it as a password. Let's say admin, and then click on this hash button. So I'll just copy it, use a notepad, and save it over here. Okay. So let's complete saving our database table. Oh, I haven't done it, so let's say put varchar 100, because it is also going to be a alphanumeric field, and then I'll save it. Now we will have our DT users table. Now we need to insert data. I'll not put anything in the user ID table, user ID field, because it's an auto incremented column. I'll put full name as my full name, give a fake email ID like example.com, and I'll take the data that I have created. This is the encrypted password through SHA-1 algorithm, which we just got it from online SHA-1 generator, and we will put it like this. Now the data is saved. So now we can move back to our next step, which is building up the HTML pages for login and dashboard, which is our protected page. So let's do it. To build our login system, I have created a folder user login. I have also created two blank pages, one for login and another for dashboard. Before we start doing the coding for HTML, we need to include our CSS framework Bootstrap. So let's head towards getbootstrap.com, and there you can see this download button. Click on the download button. There are many ways you can download Bootstrap, but for this tutorial I am going to use the Bootstrap CDN. So I'll just copy that and paste it under title. We don't need this integrity and cross origin, so I'll just remove that for now. Okay. So now we have Bootstrap and Bootstrap CSS file and Bootstrap JS file. Bootstrap JS file won't work alone. It needs jQuery to work properly. So I'll copy the jQuery as well. I am going to use the CDN for jQuery. I'll just remove this integrity and cross origin. We are also going to need another file for internal styling of our application. We are using framework, but also we need to stylize our application. So for that, I am going to create another file and name it as style.css. And same way, we are going to include that into our application. Sorry, I am putting into wrong file, so we need it on the dashboard page as well. So not to worry. And then I'll put the style.css. Now we are done with all the includes into our PHP file for styling our application. Now let's start the HTML code. We are going to make use of the Bootstrap built-in classes. So first we'll create a class container, and for internal styling purpose we are going to use another class login container. This container class belongs to Bootstrap, and login container is the class that we are going to create in the style.css file to stylize our application. Then we need to create a row. This is also Bootstrap's built-in class, and we need to use a column called empty8. So Bootstrap has a grid system which divides the entire web page into 12 equal columns, though it is not within the scope of our application, but still just wanted to inform you about that. And then I'll create our own class login form, and then I need a heading here. As login form. Then within this, I will start creating the form, and we have these This is built-in class which I am getting from Bootstrap. This is for stylizing the form fields actually. So inside that form group class I create my input fields. So first one will be text and name will be username, user email, sorry, because in the database we have used the field user email which will be our username for the login system. So I just want to name it the same way which I have done in the database. So here user email, and as a class we will put form control. Okay, and okay, that is okay for now. Okay. So I need to just put a placeholder over here. The placeholder is enter. I'll just copy it, just change the things, password, then here I will put password, or we will put user password, then enter password placeholder, and we need a button. So we will submit button, name say login, and class let's say VPN submit or VPN login, whatever you want to keep. Okay, now our Bootstrap form is ready, our login form is ready. So let's head towards localhost user login /login.php. Right now I didn't put any customized style, so this form is looking pretty simple. So let's just put some styling. So I'll head towards style.css, and the first class that we have created, I'll put a margin. I just want to give some margin from top and some margin in the bottom, 5%. Again, head back to the browser, refresh it. Yes, it's working perfectly. Then I'll create this login form class, and inside that I'll put some padding. I want to give some space on inside. So let's say padding 5%. Then I'll put the background as say 0062 and then CC. Okay, and what we want. So now we can go there. It is looking something like this. I have created padding of 5%, so it is taking that space from inside. Now let us put some box at. So let's say 0, 5px, 2px, 0, RGBA, 0.0.2, 0, 9px, 56px, Now let's get back to that. Yes, we have created this shadow around our box. Now we will just so we have a login form here. We have heading login form. Now let us stylize that login form and let's click 3. We'll just put something text align center and color. I will put that left corner, border is none, and I will put the color as 0062 cc, and background I will put it as a1. Okay. I can make it as a little bit bolder on bold. So now it is looking fine. But here in between these input fields and the button there is no space. So let's create a class dot input space, okay. And we can put as, actually we don't need to do that, we can take help of empty mb2 to get a margin, and it should be fine. Yeah. Our button is looking nice, and okay. So our login form is ready. We just need to make it centered. So what we can do here is we can put a inline style margin, or here we need to do that. Let's go to the login form and put margin left auto. Same way I can put margin right. It is not working. So let's put it as inline style. This one style margin left auto, margin right. Yes. Now the login form is centered. So now what we can do is we can head towards the dashboard page. We have already inputted, by mistake we did that, included the bootstrap CSS. I'll also include the style, our own style file, which is style.css. Okay, and I will just, for the sake of saving time, I'll just take the skeleton, I'll take the form out from there. Here I'll just put dashboard here, and I'll create a character text of welcome Roy, you are logged in. Okay, and another paragraph we will have our login link, logout link. Logout. So here it will be logout.php. We haven't created that file, we have to create it, but now we are just doing the HTML, so that's fine. So let's head towards the dashboard.php. Okay, it's not looking that well, so we will put some style for our paragraph. So do text align center, use something like That's looking nice. Okay, so we have built the login page. We have also built the dashboard page, but we haven't done any kind of PHP coding. So that is our third step. We will put our PHP code inside this login.php dashboard.php. We are also going to create another page, logout.php, which will do the task of logging out a user from the system. So let's start doing that. Before we start our PHP code, we need to add two attributes to our form tag. The first one is method. The method attribute can have two values, as you know. One is get and another is post. As our form contains sensitive information like user password, we should not be using get, because if we submit the form using get method, all the values from the form will be displayed on the URL, and that is not a secure way of submitting form. So here we will use post as the submission method. Our second attribute is action. In this case, we are going to submit the form data into this page itself. So we, in place of action, we are going to put login.php. We are putting the value of action as login.php because we are submitting the form in this page itself. So let's start here our PHP coding. As a first step, we need to check whether the form is getting submitted or not. So we will put a condition if post. So if the form is submitted, it will check, this code will check that the data is submitted or not. If it is submitted, we will capture the value from the form. So capture value from the form, and we have only two values to capture. So use user email, which is the name of the field. I'll just copy it and replace user email with user pass. Here I will put user pass. Okay. Now here we also need to check that user should not be submitting any blank values, and if he or she does so, then there must be a mechanism to check that they have submitted blank data, and we should let the user know that you cannot do that. So for that purpose, we are going to use a flag valid, and we will initialize it as 1. If the validation, that means if the user email is blank or user password is blank, then this valid field will flag it off, and we will make the value of valid as 0. So let's do the validation here. So we will check if user email equals to blank and $valid is equal to 1. Then we will need another variable to capture the error or the error message that we are going to show. Please enter user email, or please enter your email. just going to copy it out and paste it over here and replace user pass, and instead of email I'll just replace it with password. So if we are not submitting blank values, or the user is not submitting blank values, then the value of valid should be 1, and we are going to check that. If valid equals to 1, then we, as the next step, we are going to connect to the database. How do we do that? There is a function which is already given, that is MySQL connect. This function takes 4 parameters, and the result of this function is a connection resource, which we are storing it in the con variable. Okay. So first parameter for this function is the host, where the database is located, whether it is located in local or it is in any other server. We are using our development environment, which is situated in local. So our database is in local, and we are going to, for that we are going to use local host. Second parameter for MySQL Connect is the username for the MySQL. So our username is root, and then the password for MySQL. We haven't given any password, so we left it as blank. Fourth one is the database to which we want to connect, and in our case it is user. So our connection is completed, but we should check that whether the connection is successful or not. So for that we will use an if condition. If the connection is successful, then we will do the stuff that is needed to be done. Else we will capture the error in the error field, and we will give an error message: connection to the database is failed. Okay. So now if the connection is successful, we are going to issue a query to check whether the username or the user email that we have given is valid or not. Write a query to check for valid user name / email. So here the query is select user ID and full name from DB users, where user email is equal to $user Now to execute the query and get the result, we need to use the function MySQL query. So this particular function takes 2 parameters. First one is the connection resource, and the second one is the query. Now we will check whether this result set contains any record or not. We also have a function for that, which is MySQL num rows, and this function takes only one parameter, the result set that is being returned by the MySQL query function. So So we pass this result and check for more than 0 records, or there must be a record. So we are putting greater than 0. Here we will also put an else condition to check that whether this query is returning a record or not. If it is not returning any record, that means there is no user exist with the given email. So here we will capture the error, and the error should be like this: wrong user name and or password. You may ask me why you are writing wrong username and password, because we are checking for user name only, in this case user email. But you must remember that hackers, if they want to hack your application, they will try to guess your username first. If you are giving them a hint that they are guessing the username correctly, then it will be problematic. So that is why, through the help of the error message, you should not be telling them exactly what is wrong there. Though we know as a developer that we are checking for the username here, but for the outside world, they should not know that what is wrong, whether the username is wrong or whether the password is wrong, but something is wrong. So that is why I am giving this particular message as wrong username and password rather than wrong username. Okay. So now if the user email exists in the DT users table, then we will have a result. Generally what happens in the users table, all the data are unique. So we will have only one row. To fetch a row from the MySQL table, we have a function MySQL fetch row. Okay, so let's fetch it. MySQL fetch row, and we will pass our result set to it. MySQL fetch row always returns a numeric row. So if I need to get the user ID, I will just refer the index 0, because user ID is on the first place, and PHP arrays always start with index 0. So next one is full name. Here if user will be 1 because it is on the second place. So now we've got our user ID and password. Now we need user ID and the full name. But we haven't checked that whether we have entered the correct password or not. Now our next query will check that whether for this particular user with the user ID that we just fetched is matching with the password for that user or not. So let's write the query. Query pass, select user ID from DT users where user email equals user ID equals to user first. But we have encrypted password placed in the database, and that encryption was done using the algorithm SHA-1. So we have a PHP function for that, and this user password which we have given will be the parameter for that function. So here we go, SHA-1. Now we need to execute the query and get the result in a variable result pass. So we are going to do that. As we already know, MySQL query takes two parameters, connection and the query that it is going to execute. So we just did that, and then again we are going to check whether it is returning any result or not through this function MySQL inumRows, which will take the result and check for existence of a record. If we don't find a record, then again we will have an error, same as previous one, wrong username / password. Okay, but if it happens, then we need to set the session variable. So how do we do that? Before setting up the session, we need to do a session start. Session is a special feature which enables to use a particular value throughout our website or web application. If a session variable is set, then we can use that variable and get the value of the variable in different pages of the website. It's a very important function because through this session variable we will be able to check for unauthenticated access to the dashboard page. So now let's set up our session. To start session, at the top of the page we will use the PHP function session start. Remember that whatever pages we want to use our session variables, we need to call this function session start at the top of the page. The session start function checks for existence of a session variable. If it doesn't find it, then we can set up a session if we want to. So now let's go to our code where we have left, and here we will set up session variables. So here we will set up two session variables, UID equals to $user ID. Store the value of user ID in the session variable UID, and if name, which will hold our value of the user's full name. As now we have got our valid user, we can just head to the dashboard page. So we will do we use the PHP function header. Here we will use location :login.php. Okay. One thing is still remaining, that we haven't initialized our error. So we just do that. Error equals to blank here, and here we need to display the error. So just after that login form heading, we are going to make use of our bootstrap class if plus alert and alert changes, and here this particular div will be shown up if there is an error. So we'll check if is set $error and $error not equals to blank, then only this particular div will show up, otherwise it will not. Now coding for login page is done. Let's run this. Okay. First we will submit the form as blank to check that whether our validation works properly or not. Yes. So the first validation is perfect. Now let's check the second validation whether blank password is entered or not. Yes, the second validation is also working perfectly. Now we will put a wrong username first. So let's give a whatever password and then check. Yeah. So it is showing me the correct message, wrong username and password. Now let's see if I give the valid username but wrong password, then what should it show? Okay, it is giving me once again the correct one. Now we have used password as admin, so we will just enter that. It should now take me to the dashboard page. Okay. It redirected me to the login page because I have forgetfully entered login.php in place of dashboard.php, because after successful login we are going to go to the dashboard page, not come back to the login page. So let's test it once again. Open the Troy form and admin, and then yes, it shows me the dashboard page. But still some code is left to be done. And what is that? Here, for example, if I am not logged in, then also it is going to show me the dashboard page. But before we code our dashboard page, I want to code the logout page, which we have designed. The logout link that we have designed, for that we need a page logout. So we create a logout page here, logout.php. Here, code for logout.php is very simple. We are just going to destroy the session here, and then header location is that's it. Now let's check our code. So we are already logged in. Sorry, this dashboard.php. We are in dashboard.php. Let's check our login. So it is redirecting me to the login page. But still, we are able to access the dashboard page because we are not restricting the dashboard page to be shown up. So we need to restrict it. So how do I restrict it? We can restrict it by checking the existence of a session variable. because we are creating session for user ID. We are creating two session variables in the login page after successful login. One is user ID and another is fname, UID and fname. So we can check that if the session for UID is set in the login page, then only the dashboard page is accessible, because then it is confirming that the user details that we have entered is correct one. So that user is a valid user. But if we haven't set up that session variables, which we get only after successful login, then that particular user should not be able to access the dashboard page. So let's do that. As I have already told you, if you want to use the session at the beginning of the page, you need to write session start. And now we can check if not is set, what session UID and value of session UID is not blank. Sorry, is blank. Then we will redirect them to the login page once again. So we will use this header function and location will be login.page. Okay, so here let's log out. Now let's try to access the dashboard.php page. What happened? Yeah, because I haven't used this session start here in this logout page. So it is not able to check whether the session exists or not, and so that is why session destroy is not working. So let's now do it and then check the dashboard.php page. Yes, now my code works. Again, we haven't put this session start here, so that is why it is not able to check whether any session exists or not. If it is not able to check the session is existing or not, it will not be able to destroy that particular session. So that is why this session start is necessary at the top of the page where you want to do any kind of session related functions. Okay. Okay. Now let's say we also want to dynamically change the value based upon the full name of the user. Currently I have statically written my name here, but we are going to change that. And what we write here, we have already set up the session variable full name, so it will show up the full name of the logged in user instead of my name every time. Okay, so now if I go back and try to log in using the proper username, now it is showing Anupam, because that is the value we have. I have changed the value from Anupam Rai to Anupam, and it is showing me the correct one, and we can log out. Now our login system using PHP and MySQL is ready. Hopefully you have liked the video, and after watching this video, I think you will be able to build your own login system. Thanks again for watching. See you in the next video.